No doubt a turbulent day for the Democrats on day one, but it's supposed to be their conventions.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
You know, I think those folks, those Bernie Sanders folks, and there's plenty of them, of course, would have walked away a little more quietly if this whole WikiLeaks email DNC controversy hadn't commenced. And I've got terrific guests tonight to talk about that. See, Professor Joe Cammarano is back, and journalist Noel Rubinton back for us tonight to talk about that. So welcome in on this Tuesday, night 2 of the convention. Of course, if you're seeing this at 7:30, there's still a whole bunch of drama to come. And if you're watching this at midnight, you've seen President Clinton be the first one. Well, the other one hasn't become the president yet, and a whole lot more. In the meantime, though, there's some stuff going on locally, and I just wanted to touch base on that. So here's a couple of headlines that I think are interesting. Carnevale's conduct unacceptable, unfit for leadership team, says Speaker Mattiello. And then, another version here on WPRI.com. Here's the latest from Target 12 on the story that they originally broke.
Speaker Mattiello's decision to break with Representative Carnevale comes as he himself is facing a tough re-election race in his own House district. Unacceptable. That's what House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello said today as he announced Rep. John Carnevale will be removed from the House leadership team. The announcement follows 6 weeks of controversy since Target 12 first raised serious questions about whether Carnevale actually lives in the House district he represents. Carnevale insists he does. The tipping point for Mattiello? Police officials confirming last week Carnevale asked an officer to intentionally write him parking tickets at the home where he claims to live. In a statement, the speaker said in part, quote, "Public service requires public trust, and that has not been reflected in Rep. Carnevale's actions." Mattiello has faced weeks of criticism from Republicans for giving plum assignments to both Carnevale and disgraced former Rep. Ray Gallison, who's now under federal investigation. Monday's condemnation of Carnevale comes as the speaker is fighting off 3 challengers in his own re-election campaign, Republicans Stephen Frias and Shauna Lawton, and independent Patrick Vallier. Frias has been Mattiello's most aggressive critic. On Monday, he told Target 12, quote, "This is typical Mattiello. When it comes to promoting good government, he drags his feet until the pressure from the public becomes unbearable." We reached out to Carnevale's attorney earlier today. He is fellow state rep Robert Jacquard. Jacquard tells us he does not see the speaker's comments as, quote, personal or judgmental in any way toward Carnevale.
Interesting. Noel, I used to do that all the time. I don't do it anymore. Noel. And Joe Cammarano, Noel Rubinton. Thanks, guys. Before we get into the whole DNC thing, original thought on what you're seeing?
You know, Mattiello doesn't seem to be as powerful a speaker if he doesn't know what's going on with these people. It's pretty embarrassing. Rhode Island's got a powerful speaker, and Mattiello really does need to take responsibility for the people who work with him.
I agree, it's embarrassing. He could have asked 6 weeks ago what the story was, and if he didn't believe it then, he should have done this then.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that Mattiello was on vacation last week when the parking ticket. By the way, right? Where do they come? Where does he come up with that, Carnevale? Where does he come up with that?
Creative.
He was fishing. He was fishing for evidence that he lived there.
Yeah. Think about what you just said. He was fishing for evidence that he lived somewhere to make up. But in the speaker's defense, and I don't run to his defense often. He was gone last week. He came back and realized that he had a tempest in a teapot. Frias, maybe his main competitor. I don't really know what's going to happen in that Republican primary between 2 good candidates, Lawton and Frias. Kind of saying he's dragging his feet. You know what? What was he doing in the finance chair in the first place? But then again, the pickings aren't that deep, right now. And of course, he's got all. It's really interesting as a study of a student of politics, both of you. Mattiello has a needle to thread here. He's got a progressive base that is crawling up his political wazoo here. He's got GOP on this side. He's got Majority Leader DeSimone, who is politically very friendly with this knucklehead Carnevale, and so he's got a little bit of a fissure now occurring in his own leadership campaign. It's not necessarily easy to try to navigate leadership with 74 other people determining your fate, right? So, yes?
I don't think I could be that forgiving. These 2 people, Gallison and Carnevale, are so far beyond the pale that I just think that you can't be standing up for people who aren't honest.
Well, I agree with that, but I also agree with you. I think Mattiello really is dealing with 2 political parties within the Democrats. I've been saying that for a long time. I think we're seeing the end of the conservative Democratic era. He's probably the last speaker to represent them.
That's profound. Yeah, because we do have a significant, this Sanders thing is for real, man. We have it embedded here. I mean, those guys yesterday tweeted out that they were upset that Governor Raimondo, and I failed to put anything up here on this, but Governor Raimondo was named co-chair of the DNC, and they're aghast that
she's not progressive enough.
Right, and they considered Dan McKee, their words, right wing, the lieutenant governor. People better wake up.
Yeah, I do think that people like Carnevale, or at least Mattiello, will eventually, in the not-so-distant future, be Republicans, and we'll finally have a competitive system.
That is fascinating. That's fascinating. Alrighty, so let's talk about more fascination. The Democratic National Convention. A couple of headlines from last night, just to wet our whistle here. High wattage stars. And the next one. Yeah, I mean, Bernie Sanders had to step up. Here's a short wrap from CBS on the DNC last night.
Bernie Sanders capped a contentious first day at the DNC, urging his backers to help Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump in November.
Hillary Clinton must become the next president of the United States.
The Vermont senator's supporters repeatedly booed and interrupted the day's events. It was First Lady Michelle Obama who managed to bridge the divide.
Only one person who I believe is truly qualified to be president of the United States, and that is our friend Hillary Clinton.
Some Bernie Sanders supporters say that no matter what, they will not vote for Hillary Clinton, even if that means Donald Trump becoming president.
Sanders had a message for those demonstrators.
Our revolution continues.
Former President Bill Clinton will address the convention today, a day focusing on his wife's record of working for children and families.
Your take from last night?
I think it was probably about as good as the Democrats would want. There were some great speeches. There was the right progression from more chaos in the early part to more unity, particularly after Michelle Obama. We'll see what happens tonight. I think they have to worry about making this not so much about Hillary Clinton while also saying, she's not what a lot of people think she is.
I think the best news last night for Hillary Clinton was how Bernie Sanders was a lot more generous than many people believed he'd be. He talked about her a lot. He said that one line about we had our disagreements, but there really was no sense of bitterness.
Kind of under.
I was surprised.
Well, you know what?
He looked comfortable. He looked happy. He was having his moment in the sun. He looked for real.
I agree, and I don't know whether. What's that?
You have sound of him.
We have sound of Bernie. Sure, we'll run that. We're casual.
Based on her ideas and her leadership, Hillary Clinton must become the next president of the United States.
Good catch on that, Lex. Look, I thought this was an interesting blend of a guy who was run against the establishment, folding into an establishment playbook for his party at the end, and doing so as a soldier amidst the whole WikiLeaks email sellout of the DNC, or exposure rather of the DNC's, working against him, blah blah blah, and with his young ralliers screaming bloody murder, and the potential for that place to be a nut house last night. I mean, it was bad, but not that bad, right?
Well, yeah, I think there are a couple things. First, it was a lover's spat. 95% of the time, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders agree. So it's that 5%, and when you're in a campaign, you're going to accentuate the 5%. The campaign's now over. He has lost. He came close. He got 46% of the delegates, but he lost.
You really think it's 5%?
It's time for the lovers to come together and join the consensus.
Do you really think it's a 5% differential between where Hillary Clinton would feel more comfortable and where Bernie Sanders has kind of dragged her?
The voting record in the Senate is 95% identical. And so this just looks like it's a divisive primary.
But the idea is...
Well, I think it's closer to 95% now because he's dragged her into a lot of things. I mean, she has adopted a lot of his positions. I think if you go back 6 months, it wasn't 95%. I think there was a bigger gap between them, and she did what she needed to do, which she needed to adopt a bunch of his positions, the latest being the free college idea, which she never would have brought up.
Bingo. And now he announces last night a deal that at $1.25 annual salary a year, everyone added or under it is going to have free college tuition, public universities and colleges.
I mean, I think one of the reasons. I think one of the reasons.
By the way,
he felt-
126 is too much. I mean, I don't understand that threshold stuff. I don't understand it. Do you? It drives me crazy, that
I
particular
don't think it's ever
conversation.
going to happen personally. I think it's.
No, it's not
but
gonna
it
happen.
sells well, but it's never. It costs too much money.
They would have to restructure the way the entire university, I mean, PC wouldn't be part of this conversation, obviously, but URI and RIC and all those places, how would they retool their budgets to exempt all of those kids from tuition? How in heaven's name would that happen?
Well, that would come through heavier public subsidies, and it would probably come through the federal government taking part of that responsibility and then saying to the states, as a condition for us helping, you're going to have to help like they usually do. It's called the matching fund. That will pay 2/3, you pay 1/3.
Yeah, but it's always a diminishing formula. Anytime the feds decide to get in and help something, 5 years later,
Not
you're
always.
left holding the bag.
Not always, but yeah,
Well, the
often
COPS
it is.
program and those kinds of
But
programs.
I do agree that it's too expensive and it's not going to happen. Particularly, if Hillary wins, it's still going to have a Republican House, and the president always loses these days in the midterm elections. It's not going to happen.
You didn't say Republican Senate. When we come back, there was a star of the show last night. I think that's consensus. They will.
When I think about the kind of president that I want for my girls and all our children, that's what I want. I want someone with the proven strength to persevere, someone who knows this job and takes it seriously, someone who understands that the issues a president faces are not black and white and cannot be boiled down to 140 characters.
Boy, I'll tell you, you want to talk about a powerful, subtle, powerful line? We're always looking for that wow moment. She was good. I don't know who wrote that for her, but that was good.
I wouldn't be surprised if she had a major hand in it. She does have speechwriters, of course. Look, I've known people who've known Michelle Obama since time she was an attorney. They all say she's the most extraordinary person they've ever met. I've never met anyone who knew her who didn't say that. So we saw that.
And
She could be a bigger weapon for Hillary than the president, because
Well,
she doesn't have a lot of negatives.
she's all in.
Right?
I mean, she's all in. And Donald Trump, of course, can't help himself. We have some tweets. So there he is. And he makes a point about ISIS. Of course, it was only night one, and they're having a different conversation with America. We'll talk about that here in a second. Talks about Bernie selling out. But what we notice is that, and Noel pointed this out during the break, Donald Trump didn't tweet on Michelle, did he?
Right? He held back because he knew, what's he going to do? It's only going to look bad.
How much of a tool will she be for Hillary Clinton? Exposure always creates, less juice. I mean, sometimes in and out type of thing. But do you think she'll be on the trail hard?
I hadn't thought about that until last night, and I'm thinking now if she isn't on the trail, it's going to be a very glaring omission. And so she'll probably do a little more than I thought she would do.
I agree.
Think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the president's going to have a significant role when he speaks tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, he's carrying a 54% favorability rating right now. I mean, don't blink. But President Obama all of a sudden now is a favored political personality in this country.
That's actually very common. That second-term presidents often see a big pit, and then when we start looking at the people who are likely to replace that person, they're not looking so bad after all.
Why,
and so I
because,
think part of
because
it
of
is
the
that he looks a
nervousness?
whole lot better than either Clinton or Trump.
You think that is because of the two candidates, or because we just get a little neurotic over the idea that change is coming? We want change, but then we have a comfort. I don't know.
Well, it's like the end of a party or the last dance becomes the memory that people have.
The halo effect.
Of the prom. It's not sort of the stuff that happens in the middle of spilling stuff on the dress, getting into a fight with your friend. It's more the last thing. And so we're seeing the last period. And by comparison, he's looking okay.
Hillary is sucking a little pond water poll-wise. I mean, Trump got the bump that he was looking for, right? Does this end up being a temporary phenomenon?
It's hard to know. I mean, usually people, you don't know until after Labor Day.
Right?
So we've now had this, we're a little bit earlier than usual because of the Olympics. So we'll see what happens in August. I think you're not going to know for at least a month, where things are headed.
Tonight, they're bringing in moms of victims of gun violence, both in neighborhoods and with the police. There are no families of police victims coming. This feels like a big crapshoot to me. Or do you think it speaks to the base, and the base will react to that, and it's always about the base at a convention?
Yeah, there's a lot of research on the language and the patterns of language that different parties use. And this is the mom party. This is the party of the nurturing, caring, sort of political party who's going to help take care of you, your kids, and your future. And so this is part of that narrative. And the Republicans tend to be the ones who are more, we're going to free you, and we're going to make sure that nobody hurts you.
This ISIS thing, speaking of nobody hurts you, this ISIS remark that both Pence and Trump offered earlier today, noting that ISIS wasn't mentioned once during the campaign. Day one is only day one, right? But based on what you're saying, it seems like Donald's all in on amplifying the worries that we have, and it seems like the DNC might be going the other way to try to create it. He's the scary guy. We are the nurturing folks.
Right, but also I think that Hillary's message and people around her is how prepared she is. It's not head on into ISIS. It's not this, really macho rhetoric about let's go kill them. It's about we're ready. And I think that's what we're going to hear.
Yeah, and I think that Trump, doesn't really understand the rhythm and the planning of a party-based event like this. She's going to sort of talk about the whole theory that you beat ISIS not with power and weapons, but with what is called smart power, and that is values, culture, sort of people embracing us rather than trying to kill us.
When we come back, we'll talk about this whole email controversy and whether it's going to have any kind of sticking problem for the Clinton campaign. Stay with us.
Trump's entire campaign is just one more late-night Trump infomercial. Hand over your money, your jobs, your children's future, and the great Trump hot air machine will reveal all the answers.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren is an interesting cat in this whole thing. She's an attack dog, and not being chosen for vice president doesn't seem to bother her, at least with the presentation last night. Who's going to be more effective, Michelle or Elizabeth Warren on the road?
Well, I think Michelle Obama was more effective. I actually didn't think Warren was as good as she has been in the past, in part because she's sunk down to his level. He's better. He's good at that. She's better at details. She should stick to details.
You agree?
I generally agree, although I think the value of Elizabeth Warren is she clearly can rattle Donald Trump. And there are not that many people who can do that. I mean, she gets under his skin, so I think she'll be effective in a limited way. She's not much of a name, and she's so far to the left that I think most people would reject her if they knew more
Every
about
time she spits something up, he calls her Pocahontas in a tweet. And we all get that she probably manufactured her Native American status for her own purposes. And at the same time, I don't know, the presidentiality factor with him just tweeting away that way and everything else, will it ever wear down this electorate by the end, or yes or no?
My guess is yes, in large part because Trump doesn't understand the difference between running for a nomination, running in general election, bigger audience, broader audience, more moderate audience, and I think it's going to hurt him.
DNC, WikiLeaks, email, what a time in history that we have right now, that when you type something off to somebody, you better know that the whole world may look at it. Geez Louise, do you think this is a sticking problem for the DNC and for Hillary Clinton?
Well, I agree with what you just said, that everything we ever write we should assume will be public someday, or could be. I've read several hundred of these emails. The only thing is this reference in the Kentucky and West Virginia primaries about maybe if they promote him as an atheist instead of Jewish, that'll hurt him with voters. Out of the hundreds of things, they were more defensive about being neutral than they were partisan in favor of Clinton.
What do you think?
Well, I don't think most people care very much about the Democratic National Committee. They've now gotten the head of it to step down. I think it's going to go away. And I think this Russian thing could be as big a factor against Trump as the emails could help him. Because I think this makes him look bad that, were the Russians really doing his bidding? Even if that's never proved, just having that out there matters a lot more than these pretty petty emails.
I agree.
Yeah, well, he's smart enough to try to distance himself from that. I mean, yesterday he was laugh out loud over the idea that the Russians were there to aid and abet. But I will tell you, after you get in the middle of these stories, and you think to yourself, well, we got a House of Cards episode running here. That there is a sense of I don't know, strange drama that is and serious stuff, by the way. Email hacking. The WikiLeaks, role in all of this, the manipulation from outside sources is becoming like a real live drama.
Yeah, 6 weeks ago we heard about this and that it was likely perpetrated by the Russians. Remember, their main target was the negative stuff that the DNC had on Trump. And so my guess is there are going to be more WikiLeaks on both sides, and that the main goal is going to be to create chaos. And I think it will backfire if it becomes clear that there's a pattern.
Backfire on?
On Russia. And I think Trump would have to come out fairly strongly and start bad-mouthing Putin the way he bad-mouths others.
So you think they might overplay their hand here?
Oh, yeah.
Well, who's they at this point? It's WikiLeaks making Julian's making the decisions as to what's coming out. He's suggesting that it's not right. Russian sourcing. I mean, well, how the hell did they get them?
Assange is gunning for the Obama/Clinton leadership team because he's the one he blames them for his current state. And who knows? Who knows what's in his mind? But I do think whatever happens, if there's a pattern that there's clear purposive interference, it's gonna backfire on Assange, it's gonna backfire on Russia, and it might backfire on Trump unless he distances himself.
What are you expecting for the rest of the week?
Well, I think they've got their arc pretty well set. Unless there are more emails to come out, I think it's just going to kind of be a building drumbeat for Hillary, telling her story, people supporting her.
Do you expect Hillary to lay out a message that people will say, "Oh, wow," or is it? She's kind of playing defense with this speech, isn't she? In some ways.
Think George H.W. Bush when you think about Hillary's speech on Thursday. It's going to be a lot like his was with 1,000 Points of Light, where it's kind of this: I'm going to try to stake out my territory, but it's not going to be anything too innovative, because that's really the comparable situation. She's two-term incumbent. She's trying to take his place, trying to continue the administration, and so we're probably going to see some caution.
We live in these moments and we think they're really profound. Come Labor Day, there's not a lot of memory about the conventions at all, is there, amongst the electorate that's making the crucial decision?
We talked about this a little bit last week. I think it's the feeling from the convention rather than the words. So, I think that's yet to be seen. There should be kind of an over-under on whether Hillary's going to speak for longer than an hour and 14 minutes. I think most people hope under.
I'd bet under.
But I think she's set up for a pretty good week. We'll see how it plays through.
The reality is, the head-to-head 3 months into the election year are a better predictor than what happens at the conventions. Conventions have these temporary bumps that have no meaning.
And we've got 3 presidential debates and 1 VP debate, which we're going to need your input on. Guys, thank you. Final word when we come back. Stay with us. Alrighty, coming up on tomorrow's program, we'll have more conversation about the DNC and a couple of more voices for you to hear. Stay tuned to WPRO weekdays 3 till 6 for continued conversation. I noticed actually yesterday that there was a little lighter phone traffic for the Democrats. What's up with you Democrats? Got nothing to say? Give me a ring. Good night.